Hello everyone, this is Sean Eubanks of STRAINWISE Consulting. I want to welcome you for joining in at Facebook Live. Hello to everyone out there in Facebook land. And then to those of you who are joining us on our webinar, welcome back for this week's installment. Today's topic is going to be Cannabis Cash, solutions for safely managing the handling of cash in your business. So, I'm your host, of course. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. If it's the first time you're joining us, we are going to have a live Q&A at the end of this with our guest here. And then during the webinar, you're welcome to submit your questions either via Facebook Live or on the through the webinar here. It's a small window that we have here, but I can make notes of those, and we'll get to those questions as soon as you can. So a quick reset on STRAINWISE Consulting. We are the most sought after consulting company for applications and management contracts in the industry. We've consulted on the very first recreational license in the world. In fact, we consulted on the first 7 out of 10 that were issued here. We have nearly 100% success rate on applications submitted. We're very proud of that. We also have 9 branded dispensaries here throughout Colorado and over 100,000 square feet of cultivation space. We are, of course, among the top 5 marijuana companies in Colorado. And then we did consult to the very first vertically integrated Native American tribe selling cannabis in the United States. So, a quick reset here. What we're doing, I want to talk about a quote from Troy Dayton here on ArcView. He said, most people who are getting in won't be marijuana growers or processors. That requires a very specific skill set. He said, it's like with the gold rush. It's a great time to be selling picks and shovels instead. Which leads us to our guests and their company and an ancillary service that's very much needed in the industry. So I want to welcome our guest here from Ridgemont Corp. The CEO is Frank Mazzara. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you.
So quick background on Frank. Frank is an experienced business executive with financial and operational management expertise in a wide array of sectors, including financial technology, payments, e-commerce, media, entertainment, healthcare, mobile marketing, wireless, software development, and professional services. Is there anything you don't do, Frank?
That's a mouthful.
That is a lot. That is a lot. So Frank earned his MBA, of course, from Guizetta Business School at Emory University with a concentration on finance and entrepreneurial studies. Well worth the money there to get that.
Fantastic.
And then his BBA degree is in accounting from the University of Wisconsin. Frank's also a CPA, certified payment professional as well, and certified anti-money laundering specialist as well. So welcome to the show, Frank.
Thank you, Sean.
And then his partner, COO of Ridgemont Corp, is Brendan Cusio. Mr. Cusio served as the EVP of Business Development and Compliance Manager, Project Manager for FSD Corp. He was integral in developing key customer, agent, and transaction monitoring programs, which enhanced FSSD Corp's compliance program with its family of regulated MSB companies. Prior to his role at FSSD, Mr. Cusio served also as Vice President of Finance for SRS LLC, where he oversaw the company's accounting and finance departments, in addition to managing the company's capital structure through a series of M&A and bank-sponsored activities. So welcome.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, guys, so we're going to get into some questions here, and we're going to talk a little bit about Ridgemont Corp and what's possible. You can see on all of these slides that ridgemontcorp.com is the website. Please feel free to look through that as you're talking and follow us along here. We're going to go through a format of just some questions. So first of all, some light stuff, getting to know Frank and Brendan. So question for you, number one, is what made you choose this industry? Frank, you go first.
Well, thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
And again, thanks for having us. We really appreciate the time spot here. Choosing the industry for us, for me personally, I think was pretty easy. We see the industry, and I see it personally, as a lot of big problems to be solved. There's a lot of challenges in the industry. I often refer to it as a roller coaster ride. And one of the things that we like to do is solve those big problems. So we see a bullseye on the problem related to the topic we're talking about today and some of the solutions. So big challenges equal big solutions equals actually a lot of fun in going down that road to solve those problems.
Sure. And what year did you guys get started? When did you dive in officially?
We officially started this firm in 2016.
Okay, absolutely. So was there a time when you were looking for the industry, or you knew, like, how long ago did you decide, look, we're getting in this industry?
I think back when we refer to it as our former life in the mothership, our former enterprise, we recognized working in a very heavily regulated financial services environment that even some of the core products and services that are non-cannabis related are fraught with regulatory challenges and regulatory peril. So we obviously thought that our profound solutions in that sector would gravitate and migrate well into the cannabis sector. So we saw it as a great opportunity to marry the two together. Our previous employer opted to not support that type of a road, so we said, well, this is an opportunity. I think Brendan and I saw it as too great of an opportunity to let someone else take advantage of. So we said, well, let's spin out and we'll take this one on our own.
Wonderful. Brendan, what made you choose the industry?
I mean, to echo what Frank says, I love solving problems, and we talk about this all the time. This is one of the most complex problems out there today. You have compliance issues, banking issues, other regulatory issues. It's something that there isn't one solution for. It's multifaceted, and it's so underdeveloped and underappreciated at the moment. And we all know the industry is coming, but it's a matter of being at the forefront of it and sort of driving the success of the industry.
Yeah, I think as we get into this discussion today, it'll start to paint a picture for the listeners that there are so many different angles that you serve the market here, from compliance and safety,
Right.
and just a lot of issues. And I think that the casual observer just isn't aware of the cash problem, and it is a problem. And so the solution that you guys are offering is warranted. So I appreciate you being in the industry and taking this risk, because you really don't know how long it's going to be necessary, right? If regulations come down in a positive way for the industry, it could very well strain you, and there could be no need for that specific need, and hopefully you guys are diversifying, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I applaud you for helping that, and I hope it, it's an interesting, we're rooting for you, we're also rooting for the industry, but you're right in the middle of solving problems, so we appreciate you doing that. All right, next question. What is let's flip the slide here. What's your earliest memory in the industry, Frank?
Earliest memory in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
I guess this would be in the, this is pre-legalization days, right? I'm a little bit dated from an age perspective here, but I would say memories of the 1970s, Pink Floyd. I think it was maybe the Animal Tour.
Okay.
Pink Floyd Animals. Milwaukee County Stadium sometime in the 70s.
All right.
Memory's a little hazy on that, but that would probably be some of my very early experiences with the non-legal side of the industry.
Right. It's funny, we'll bring on people and they'll say, I've been doing this for 30 years. And I'm like, you mean 3?
Right.
Right. It's funny to listen to them. It's interesting. And it's such an interesting conversation to have, right? Because you want to draw on your experience without saying, I'm really experienced. Or on the production side anyway, in history.
Right, but I think certainly from a commerce perspective, it's been less than a year to really be engaged in the business that we're offering today. But obviously, very fond memories of what took so long, right?
Right, absolutely.
What took so long. Right.
Brendan?
My earliest memory is really related to family. I have a family member that has some developmental issues, and as such was prescribed medicinal cannabis many, many years ago to help with those developmental challenges. And so my experience with that was seeing the relationship between he, his doctor, the dispensary, how he would go and get his cannabis, the specific strains, and how influential they were on specific conditions. So, for me, it's been about 10 years or so, but, really in the industry the last 3 years, like you said.
Wonderful. So was his treatment being done in California or another state? Or,
California.
Yeah, excellent. And how's that progress?
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's
very,
wonderful. So the medicinal side of it.
Medicinal side's definitely helped him. I mean, go from low functioning to high functioning, which is pretty significant in his case.
Yeah, I have a similar memory. My uncle had some chemical exposure from Vietnam, and so he came back and was having grand mal seizures, and he would smoke, and then that would alleviate his symptoms. We would go months without a seizure that way. And so even as a kid, 4, 5, 6 years old, I didn't realize it was medicine at the time, but that's exactly what he was using it for. And probably some recreational as well. My dad had a spinal cord injury, and he used that to treat his condition, his basically pain management, which looking back on that situation, I think, well, wow, what if he was thank goodness he was using that because he was more my dad in his natural form than say if he was doing opioids or those type of painkillers, which can bring about changes in the brain and different necessity for it, right? That are not necessarily pain related. We're hearing a lot of that on the nationwide conversation of what an alternative cannabis is. But yeah, I appreciate that because it's always interesting, and there's always a medicinal side of it as well. And as we start to look back, you start to hear people kind of come out of the woodwork and go, I've been doing, really, really smart people saying, I've been using cannabis for 20 years. I'm like, wow, I would have never guessed, so interesting stuff. Okay, moving on here. So question number 3, what is your favorite part of a typical day in the industry and why?
Go ahead. Start it off, Brandon.
I think the people in this industry are fantastic. They're so diverse. Their backgrounds are so diverse. They come from all over the place, whether they be financial professionals, industry professionals on the growing and cultivation side, whether they be in totally unrelated businesses and have decided for some reason to get into the space because they have an attachment, maybe like you, to family that had some condition. I think the people in the space are absolutely fantastic.
So are you calling on people every day as your kind of role to call on retailers? So are you talking generally to executives or bud tenders or a little bit of both? Or?
All the above.
All the above.
Yeah, I think the bud tender experience is one of my favorites, actually. It's just this relationship management, or this relationship manager for the dispensary that's really driving sales for them and engaging with the consumer. That's just a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, it's interesting on that. The value of the bud tender is immense, right? The optics of it, when you walk into a dispensary, what does it look like? Do you feel welcome? And then their knowledge. But I'm amazed, sometimes I'll kind of secret shop and our 9 dispensaries, someone might not recognize me, but I'm always asking, what do you think? And they absolutely have their recommendations. They're clear about it. This is what I love, and this is what you should do. And so yeah, I think there's an art to being a bud tender. And so I haven't engaged them on a different level, but just as a consumer going in, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I would supplement that, Brendan's comments with the fact that it is really about the people, the variety of people, and I would say that I'm surprised at, the diminishing stigma that comes along with the space, and not living in Colorado my whole life. I've only been here for a little over a year now. Obviously, it's much more prevalent in this market or this community, but we see bankers, we see attorneys, we see regulators, we see finance professionals, we see everyone kind of off in the background really cheering us on and saying, wow, this is really a big problem, and we're supportive. We really are thumbs up on what you guys are trying to do, and you would never expect that, right? I mean, traditionally you wouldn't expect it. I mean, there's a stereotypical component that you would expect, but I think the variety of professionals and the way that the industry is really, I would say, elevating itself from that standpoint with professional investors. We're talking to people all the time, VCs, private equity groups. It's really been amazing. I think that's been surprising. And I think that the favorite part for me is the fact that I can never get surprised anymore. It's like you just don't know. You would never expect that, that person is a proponent. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's interesting. And, to our age, we're around the same age, and you have, there's that fear of, should I get in this business? I mean, what are my friends going to think? What are my parents going to say? And, even no matter how old you are, you're still a son, or, you still have people you answer to, right? And opinions that you value. But it's interesting. None of that was true for me either. I was nervous. I was finally almost like, hey, I've got to just kind of tell people this is what I do, and I would kind of rehearse that. I'm a cyclist, and we'll be riding these long rides, and like, what do you do? And I'm like, do I say I'm in the marijuana business, or do I say cannabis, or do I say I help people get in there? I'm a consultant. It's interesting how and then next thing you know, it's just, hey, I'm in the marijuana business. I help people start these businesses, and it's a really comforting thing. So I was surprised, like you, that people are just really embracing the industry, and the amount of professionals that are coming in is amazing because the face of it has changed, right? Especially at the corporate level, executive level, because these businesses are so wildly successful. They tend to morph into something good. All right, so what do you feel most passionate about, medicinal or recreational use? Question number 4.
I mean, I would say passionate-wise, obviously there's a time and a place for recreational. I think that is, it's a social element, it's a social aspect, and being able to conduct that use in a safe and sound environment is important. But I think medicinal, we've really seen medicinal take on a whole new level of importance. I think to your story earlier, but also, I have an uncle who has some serious challenges with cancer right now, so we know that he's actively enjoying a comfortable use of certain oils and some certain treatments, and it's really made a difference in his life. So I think, there's a quality of life that, we're responsible for providing improved well-being for people. So I think, how could you not be passionate about that? But I think it's a tough scale. I would say most passionate, I would say medicinal. But a close second, I think there's a social, recreational reality that I think is attractive.
I have to agree with that. It's the most progress is going to be made on the medicinal side. I kind of feel like I have a full understanding of the recreational side. I am excited about the way we consume and how that's going to change, and that if you need, for example, if you're treating anxiety or something and you need a lozenge or something that you need to consume in front of your kid without it being obvious, or kind of treating it like medicine, how we're consuming, how those how the new products will cross the blood-brain barrier, and how it affects you versus an edible versus a lozenge or a tincture. I'm more interested in, and I'm very excited about the clinical trials, because the people who do need it as a medicine, especially if they're trying to get off of other medicines, that seems to be a common theme. I'm more excited about the microdosing and the medicinal progress. I think recreational is the same as, it probably won't change much, right? I mean,
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that, Brendan?
Yeah, I agree with the medicinal side of things. I was personally in an accident not too long ago, and I've used the patch for pain, and it's helped tremendously without having a mental effect on me, and nobody would know otherwise that I had it on, right, unless I lifted up my shirt. So for me, it's all about medicinal. My wife and I also run a foundation that's highly focused on children and their well-being, so we believe strongly in whatever it takes to get them healthy and happy.
Yeah.
So the medicinal side kind of holds, personal heart for us on that side as well.
Yeah, we share that enthusiasm. I'm definitely passionate about, if you're going to give a 5-year-old kid Ritalin, then make sure you exhaust all the other things as well. I love the fact that there are other treatments available, and by all intents and purposes, with very little we know about it, it seems to be less harmful than Ritalin and SSRIs and things like that. So, yeah, I love that, because I think the brain's developing and things are happening, and you want them to kind of move from that. So, all right, next question: what special talent would be invaluable to industry? That's yours.
You're asking for like a superpower.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you can't wipe away 280E or do anything. You are a CPA. You are a CPA. You could do that if you. I mean, that is a superpower, and you would be paid very well for that.
Yeah, I would say, obviously, that's a difficult challenge. I don't think 280E is going away tomorrow, for sure, but I know there's a lot of momentum and a lot of motion to modify 280E. But if I had the magic wand, the superpower, I would abolish 280E. We're legitimate businesses. We're conducting legitimate commerce. There's no reason why we should be penalized, or that our retailers should be penalized for behaving in a legal fashion.
Now, are you classified as a financial services company?
We are actually a financial technology.
Financial technology. Okay, wonderful. But you're ancillary, which is great.
We're an ancillary.
Which is wonderful. So you don't really. Yeah, it's I tip a cap to everyone that's in this industry and under 280, especially on the dispensary side. If you only have a dispensary, you're really taking on a chance.
That's right.
So, your thoughts?
I mean, mine would really, I guess, be influence towards open-mindedness. All the way to the top of this country. I think that cannabis in this country has continued to expand into many states, and I think people are much more tolerant of it than they used to be. And I mean, to me, it's really just if it's something that works for you and it's not endangering or disrupting somebody else's life, then people should kind of just stay out of it. So if I had the opportunity to influence at that level, I think that would be what the special talent I would like to have me do.
Like it or not, it seems like all indications are politically that's where we're going. Whether you voted for the people in office now, the administration, they're doing it. Whether it's the preferred method or not, but there's a cut in funding, and there seems to be very little interest in, number one, funding regulation or oversight or closing. Right. So it seems to be this tipping point that is kind of. It seems like the states are going to work it out. and then people will be rewarded if you. I think we're seeing much less travel. Medicinal refugees, if you will, that will have to leave their state and get treatment. You're having there's so many states with some type of program. I'm hoping, and then obviously if your neighbor's using it, and then you're much likelier to, or maybe your preacher or someone that, someone of significance is like, whoa, that's a game changer for me. If this person I respect and love is using this in a medicinal way, and I might, that open-mindedness I think is just going to come naturally.
Well, then we're close to a constitutional amendment. If a few more states adopt, cannabis laws, the federal government's not really going to have a choice. It's going to become legal regardless. Right. So
absolutely, and there seems to be a fiscal push, right? So we're at $100 million in total revenue in the state of Colorado for the 8th month in a row. Total fees and everything, all last year, taxes and fees and everything, were a little over $200 million in the state of Colorado. That's good cash. I know the governor is in the process, or if you hadn't already, allocated about $14 million of the $16 million affordable housing budget.
Right.
So we have de facto partners here, and hopefully people are watching the state of Colorado, and California obviously is the big one, right? Once they start, using it, $500 million in tax revenue, they're probably want to stick with it. Right.
It's helped education here tremendously. I mean, it's
absolutely
single-handedly funded education.
Yeah, and they break that. The first $40 million goes to schools, and it gets broken out from there. But it's incredible. The excise tax and all these things aren't, they're being put to use. And so, many partners being made.
It's here to stay. There's no doubt.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I wish nationally people would relax a little bit. I know publications. I know the media in general has to get eyeballs and clicks and things, but I wish we would. I really applaud the folks that are taking a wait and see approach, not jumping to conclusions. And I feel like you do, Frank, where we're good. Things are, especially in the state of Colorado, it's written in our Constitution. There's just different things. Other states are coming on. Like, I'm really, really proud of what's going on in Arkansas right now. Very excited. This little red state is moving quickly. The conditions look wonderful. It looks to be really, really advanced, and it's surprising to me. But yeah, you're seeing things happen all over the country.
Right. Now without excitement and peril, though, right? I mean,
that's
a
right.
kind of adventure. This is roller coaster time.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's fun. The thing I don't like, I will say this, I know it's going to sound critical, but the secret, quiet money that's moving in, the unbelievable investments in hemp by certain people who can't publicly say they support it yet. And there's a little bit of crony capitalism in states like Florida. You're starting to see that in Texas as well. You're like, hey, that's a big state and it's a great market, second to California. Go ahead and let the little guys in. Yes. And you're seeing, application fees at $1.2 million, things like that that are going to be difficult. And then just rumors, of people just investing. You're like, wow, that guy is a Republican. I mean, he is absolutely publicly against this, but they're seeing green in a different way, right? Sure. Everybody's seeing it. Okay, is there one city you'd like to see the industry break into right now?
I mean, for me, it would be hometown Los Angeles. So
right.
There's medicinal use in Los Angeles, but
that's coming along.
Yeah.
That's brand. That's coming in.
That is a great market. It's the projections for Los Angeles are incredible. We're pushing out there, and we're all over that state as well. Just tremendous opportunity, but wild out there. Wild, because it's so old and new, and there's this changing of the guard, and you have we have clients out there, and it's very, very difficult to get them to believe us. We're like, look, we are compliance heavy. Everything we do in Colorado is compliance. Let us show you the right way to do it. And they're like, yeah, but our neighbor's doing that. And I'm like, I know your neighbor's doing that now, but we really want to get you on the rails. California it feels like it's its own country.
Yes.
It's interesting. We sat down with a landlord, and we're looking at several properties with him, and there are a couple people that are just operating in his spaces, and we're like, hey, they don't have licenses. That's not really good. He's like, you know what? It's been wonderful for 5 years. So it's like, okay, true. So we'll see. But everybody's really excited about California. Okay, question number 7, and we'll kind of get to some good ones here in a second. But who would you like to have as an industry contact?
Well, there's certainly some celebrity profiles, and everyone talks about celebrity endorsements. For me, I haven't met him yet, but I got to meet Snoop.
You got to meet Snoop?
I want to, yes.
I will introduce you to Erin Phillips before you leave here. She's our CEO. Okay. Her and Snoop are they've met before. Excellent. And we had Snoop out to one of our events before. It's not that expensive.
420 is right around the corner. I know he was, wasn't he planning to come last year, wasn't he? But
he can. He's interesting. I do some nonprofit work in the past, and I've had Chuck Norris and some different and Snoop is very, very cost effective, very cheap. Because you think he's Snoop, it's like, man, I feel like I want to go back to 1992. I just there's a lot of reasons like Snoop.
Just trading cannabis.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and that's funny you bring that up because he's very cannabis friendly in that arena. But yeah, so Snoop for you, Frank.
That's me.
And you, Brendan?
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, probably Willie Nelson. He's been
there
old school, but the jokes that he cracks are really out there. I like it.
He's great. Yeah, I'd love to meet Willie as well. All right, question 8, 3 words to describe the industry.
So I've got a fragmented,
okay,
highly fragmented throughout the supply chain,
evolving
from a immature to mature business / industry.
Yep.
And I would say long-term / sustainable.
Okay.
That was more than 3 words.
That was a lot. That was good.
I'll supplement. I'll caveat mine with, even though it's a roller coaster, like we talked about, we're here to stay.
Great. All right. So question number 9. We'll kind of skip that. We'll go to 10. What piece of advice would you give someone who wants to be a cannabis industry professional? Don't touch the plant, right?
Be serious.
Be ancillary, right?
Be
serious?
I think it would be serious. I think that this industry needs to continue to grow their professionalism, right? And I think that a lot of people get into this industry because they either have smoked for some period of time and really have no business sense or business experience, and that's what has tainted the industry for some time. I think the more professionalism that drives this space, whether it be regulators, attorneys, banks, etc., I think the more, the bigger the industry will be, the more in favor the industry will be, the faster it'll spread.
I'm not going to disagree with you about not touching the plant, but I don't necessarily think that is a problem. I mean, obviously from a regulatory perspective, it's a challenge, but for me, it's, you have to bring some armor with you to this industry, right? Because, what's Jeff Sessions going to say tomorrow? Or what will the administration do 3 weeks from now? They're a little bit, there's a lot of uncertainty around it still, even though at the core, at the foundation, we know we're here to stay because of states' rights and because of the revenue stream that the states are earning. So the cat's out of the bag. It's not going back in. But I think there's still some adventure ahead. So you got to have some thick armor, because we work a lot with financial institutions, and I know we'll be talking about that in a few minutes here, but the de facto answer is no.
Right.
Well, give a little more thought to that answer, because I think there's actually really profound solutions that can be crafted and developed to support a very safe environment. So to come into the industry, you have to be ready. You have to be ready to battle.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Can you describe the cash and banking problems today?
There are several.
Okay. Right. In fact, will you point out something that's positive? I'm kidding. Yeah. It's easy, very easy to find some issues here.
There are few banks in the space, so, and most of them are local or regional banks. There are a few national banks in that category playing in the space. There is a significant cash problem coming in from the consumer, whether it be the ATM and the dispensary, and then going back to storing it appropriately within the dispensary, and then getting it from there to a bank. There's some risk and some safety around that, in addition to a significant cost to move that cash. The merchants that our banked, which is a large part of the population, the banking solutions are horribly expensive. They're paying a premium upon premium upon premium for the cash management, for the compliance around that cash management, and for the processing of that. And personally, coming from a banking background like I do, there's no traditional lending in the space right now, which I think is really critical to legitimate businesses getting off the ground, owning real estate, owning assets, and being able to realize revenue from those assets. And there really aren't any traditional lending solutions available to those merchants today.
I would supplement that by saying, one of the key words that we see and talk about a lot in our business is the concept of friction. So there's friction that is driven principally around the notion of federal regulations versus state regulations. So there's a lot of uncertainty and heat that gets generated around that the banks are trying to figure out how to digest. And then I also think that's one of the primaries. And I think what that leads to these financial institutions, they have big concerns about reputational risk, right? Mm-hmm. What are my big customers going to think if they know that I'm actually providing a nice community service to improve the safety and soundness of financial transactions in this legal sector? I kind of take a secondary seat to, well, what is my big depository client going to say if they happen to be maybe a faith-based insurance organization, right? They're they'll freak out, right? Right. So, that reputational risk, I think it's softening, but I think it's still very, very real. And then obviously, as Brendan alluded to, there's a lot of friction around just having cash as the central method of moving value around in the industry. There's a lot of friction, a lot of security risk, a lot of exposure issues. I mean, I think those are, I would characterize the answer as primarily friction related to what's happening in this part of the biz.
Well, it's an interesting point you bring up because I didn't imagine, I've heard some bankers speak, and this is obviously a hot topic, and you want to listen as much as you can, and especially when Vice President of a bank's going to speak about what can happen, and they're at a pro-cannabis event. But the fact that other clients can find out that you're a client, it just sounds weird to me, right? Like I just bank at Wells Fargo, and I don't have any interest in who else banks there, right? I'm just doing my banking. But to your point, that absolutely is an issue.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. And I know the banks that we work with that are active in the space, it's all total non-disclosure. Nobody's going to know, right?
Right.
It's all, don't mention a word.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay, so next question. What are some of the current workaround solutions? I know we're kind of talking broadly here, but let's dive in.
Yeah, so, I think it's really an element of legitimacy, right? Does your bank know that you're participating in the cannabis space, whether it be dispensary, ancillary, or, cultivation or otherwise? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes we hear of, merchants having accounts, which is really
up to there. First of all, we've heard it all before. There's a lot of entities. We refer to them kind of jokingly as the fly-by-nighters, the unregulated service providers that can fix your problem. But I think some of the solutions that we see them offering are not long-term. They're not sustainable. So if you're a dispensary owner today, a merchant, a qualified merchant as we refer to them, I mean, they're afraid, right? They don't want to be the guy who's going to have to shift banks 9 or 10 times because it takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy. And I think they're very worried about these quote-unquote solutions coming across their view that are really here today, gone tomorrow. So I think some of the workarounds that we see are, there's some token/Bitcoin types of opportunities that bring in a whole nother layer of, well, is it really currency or is it really, a form of property? There are solutions like Brendan alluded to regarding, hey, I can accept credit cards, but I'm really doing this through kind of a shell or a holding company, and when the card networks actually finally discover, and it's only a matter of time, they're going to shut it down. And then what do? You basically have to piss off your customers then, because they've become accustomed to a method that they might like and that they're used to, and then it's like all of a sudden they show up and, hey, you have to go back to the ATM machine, right? That type of a solution.
Well, and speaking about the ATM, I mean, one of the other big workarounds today is this cashless ATM at the merchant point of sale, right? There's an ATM in the dispensary. Consumer can use that. They're going to pay a fee to use the ATM. Additionally, which most consumers probably don't know when they walk in, their bank is going to charge them another fee for using an out-of-network ATM. So now on an average ticket of, call it $50, the consumer's paid $5 in fees just to get cash out, right? And even when it's at the point of sale, it's still not solving the cash issue for the merchant. Maybe it's containing it a little bit and limiting the cash that comes into the ecosystem versus what's already there. But Consumers still paying fee. It's a really ugly transaction and experience where you're rounding up, you're handing cash to the consumer, less a fee, he's handing it back to you. I mean, that's not really a sexy